I love Moneyball, but I think anyone who knows me could have predicted that. It's an easy conclusion to draw. I have a bachelor's degree in film and television and a deep love for movies, and I've been a die-hard baseball fan my entire life. If you didn't know, I have a Facebook blog about the Atlanta Braves called the Braves Tama Blog, and I post articles and thoughts daily about the Atlanta Braves. So to assume I love this movie is an easy assumption. It's the combination of my favorite things, baseball and movies. But I think that this movie goes a little bigger than that. I think that Moneyball has transcended baseball to some extent, where in theory, to have a good baseball movie, you need a movie that honors baseball and makes its fans happy. Moneyball not only does that, but it goes beyond that, farther than Field of Dreams and farther than Bull Durham, I think. People who don't know anything about baseball talk to me about Moneyball because they know that I love baseball and they've seen Moneyball. It's like they're making a stereotype of me, and they're right. I love Moneyball, and so do all of my friends. In fact, I've never known anyone who's watched Moneyball that hasn't liked it. It's been 10 years now since Moneyball came out, and it's done nothing but grow its fandom. Moneyball did something right from a filmmaking perspective, but more so than that, I think it did something innovative from a storytelling perspective that makes it last. It's not quite like anything else we've seen in a Hollywood film before. So I want to take a look at that today and talk about why I think Moneyball is such an impactful movie. I'm Chet Popelka, and Moneyball is one of my favorite movies. Number one is multivalence. This movie is a very difficult story to pin down. In fact, I have a hard time imagining what Aaron Sorkin's elevator pitch was. A baseball GM with no money has to find creative ways to maintain his team's success by using untraditional player evaluation systems. Would you pay for that movie if you were a movie exec? I wouldn't.
Are you familiar with the story of Moneyball? A man uses statistics and logic to win several baseball games. It's my favorite film.
What's so different about the story is that so many sports movies are seeking catharsis, a walk-off home run, a buzzer beater. Do they win the World Series? How about a pennant? How about a playoff series? They don't do any of that, which makes this story so difficult to pin down. But at the end of the day, 10 years later, that's what I think makes this movie so enjoyable to so many people. There are so many angles for viewers to find meaning in this movie. Some people love the way Billy Beane sticks by his guns and what he knew was right in the face of adversity. Some people love that he's an innovator while everyone else wants to keep doing things the same. Some people love that the Oakland A's are inherent underdogs facing the Yankees and the Red Sox. Some people love how plucky Brad Pitt's portrayal of Billy Beane is around his coworkers. The point is that this movie does an exceptional job of not having a set meaning. The viewer brings the meaning to the movie. While I believe that's true for every story, I believe that it's especially true for great stories, that they offer so many opportunities for the viewer to find meaning in the story that it tells. And it's all done through one character, Billy Beane, a real person who was the real GM of the Oakland A's for 2 decades, even at the time of this movie. The movie all happens through the eyes of Brad Pitt's portrayal of Billy Beane. We may view ourselves temporarily through the eyes of Peter Brand, who is portrayed perfectly by Jonah Hill, but the movie is all about Billy Beane. He's the one making the decisions. He's the one having the conversations. He's the one at risk of getting fired, and he's the one dealing with the consequences of his staff leaving. Everyone knows how masterful of an actor Brad Pitt is, but that's the aspect of a meaningful performance that is most of the time overlooked. Multivalence. The ability to encompass many stories within your expression and your performance. And the interesting thing is that we may not see ourselves in every aspect of this portrayal of Billy Beane. I would never fire an employee the way he does, and I would never not watch games the way he does. I'm not that superstitious. But I would get frustrated with everybody the way he does, and I would mentor Peter Brand the way he does. This movie offers us many avenues to create meaning, and that's why a story that seems extremely niche to baseball fans ends up being so captivating to so many people. The second reason is indexicality. Indexicality isn't the existence of something real, but instead the ability to refer to something real. If you were to use your index finger to point at a bookshelf and say, hey, look at that bookshelf, we wouldn't look at your finger thinking that it was a bookshelf, but instead would recognize that the finger is being used as a symbol to point to something else that's real in existence. What we're talking about in this movie is the 2002 Oakland A's season. But we're not actually talking about the 2002 Oakland A's season. We're talking about a creative treatment that happened within the 2002 Oakland A's season. If we were looking at the reality of the 2002 Oakland A's season, the proper format to do that with would be a documentary, with interviews and pull quotes and footage. This movie blurred the lines. It gave you something in between. And that's why I think I've never seen a movie like this in Hollywood before. Moneyball was released 9 years after the events actually transpired in this movie. The movie felt like a very fresh take on something that was still actively unfolding in the analytics revolution in baseball. But what grounds this movie and makes it feel so remarkably real is this footage. The movie isn't a documentary, it's a scripted narrative. But it feels extremely real because it brings another narrative perspective that you can enter into. Your own. A baseball watcher, a baseball fan. It brings a perspective to which we can watch the movie unfold from the perspective that a fan would have in the year 2002. This movie came out in 2011, which was the very middle of the development of the 30 for 30 series on ESPN, which had extreme popularity. ESPN had filmmakers tell real stories about the times in which sports affected the world as a whole. And I thought that this movie blended those styles seamlessly, going back and forth from documentary footage of the team to actors recreating the scenes. This stylistic choice enters you back into 2002 as a baseball fan and allows you the option to watch it as if you had been there in 2002 watching the team succeed. Reason number 3 is defining success. The final reason why I think that this movie is so exceptional lies in this final scene with Jonah Hill and Brad Pitt. I think this movie contrasts with so many sports movies because the point of so many sports movies is to get you to the point of overcoming adversity, the catharsis, the walk-off home run. This movie, I thought, was incredibly, incredibly bold because it did give us that catharsis. It did give us the walk-off home run. But then it immediately undercuts it. It cuts forward to the team losing the division round. They didn't even win a playoff series, and they never have since then either. The final act of this movie is Billy Beane stewing in his apparent failure. And the climax is Peter Brand offering him a different perspective within that failure.
This is all of Jeremy's nightmares coming to life. Jeremy's about to realize that the ball went 60 feet over the fence. He hit a home run and didn't even realize it.
I think it's important to note that Billy Beane never got what he wanted. The final cut of this movie is a slide saying Billy Beane is still trying to win the last game of the season. If you were to ask him, would you rather win a World Series or change baseball with your approach in 2002? I'm pretty positive he'd take the World Series. I'll just offer this. I'm a Braves fan. Would I rather the Braves have a legacy of changing baseball or have another World Series? Easy, World Series. Houston Astros, would you like to do the right thing or win a World Series? Apparently World Series. But that's why the end of this movie is more important than the moment of catharsis. This scene is about the discrepancy between our goals and our impact. We have goals like retiring, getting to a certain level within your company, putting your kids through college, buying a house. Those are things that we work for, and sometimes we reach our goals and sometimes we don't. For the most part, we try to achieve our goals so that we have impact. But while we're in the middle of it, we don't know the impact of our careers, and we don't know the impact of our family lives, and we don't know the impact of our relationships. We don't know the impact of our best efforts towards our goals until much later. It takes years for us to see the fruit of what we've done. And sometimes what we get is nothing like what we imagined. The impact of our lives is incalculable, but it is perceivable. We can, one day, come to understand something of the impact that we've had on something. During this movie, Billy Beane said, if we win the last game of the season, we will change the world.
But if we win, on our budget with this team, we'll change the game. And that's what I want. I want it to mean something.
Well, it turns out that that wasn't true. Billy did change the sport without winning the last game of the season.
Anybody who's not tearing their team down right now and rebuilding it using your model, they're dinosaurs.
Our goals and our impact are different in that our goals can be measured, but our impact cannot. Our impact can one day be articulated, but it can never be fully measured. And so what do? Generally, we work towards our goals and we do our best, and we have faith in the efficacy of our impact. As human beings, we're terrified that our impact will never measure up to our intentions. But sometimes it does, regardless of our goals. Sometimes we hit a home run without knowing it.
How can you not be romantic about baseball?
It's a metaphor.
I know it's a metaphor.
I'm Chet Popelka, and Moneyball is one of my favorite movies.